Hello. In this presentation, I want to talk to you about the peer reviews that we sometimes ask students to do that they dreaded peer reviews. I genuinely believe that peer reviews are very important for students, that peer reviews allow students to clarify their own ideas as they explain them to classmates. This is helpful for students at all skill levels in all classes, and they do learn a lot as they critically think and analyze and evaluate writings done by others in their class. I also teach in economics, which is very terminology heavy, and terminology really matters. So often my students will joke about learning a new language. We joke about calling it econ speak, and sometimes small things that may not matter in English, that may be correct in English, may trip them up in economics. But my job to train them in becoming good economists is to use terminology and theory correctly. And this is not just important in school, but it is a skill that they're going to need as they start working professionally. So to be able to use economics and then to be able to feel comfortable providing feedback to people you're working with is a skill that they're going to need. In a classroom setting, this often worked out quite wonderfully because you just have people pair up, sitting right next to each other. They would exchange their papers. They could, smile at each other as they said, maybe change this paragraph a little bit. But of course, in the last year and a half, as we're asking to analyze and use critical thinking, we're also asking to do it in an online and often asynchronous setting. So this was quite challenging. I saw a hesitancy in students in wanting to give feedback to their peers that they may not know, that they may only run into in another class in the future, maybe at the coffee shop, but there was a hesitancy in providing this. What I already do in peer reviews that has worked really well in the past and that I carried forward was that I have peer reviews as quite low stakes part of their grade. This is not a significant chunk of their grade, but we do use it frequently enough in the class. So we may do it 5 to 6 times during a semester. This frequency is laid out in the syllabus, in the timetable, and they know it right up front that I'm going to need to do 6 small papers or 6 small discussions, and I'm going to need to have to provide feedback 6 times a semester by this particular date when we do it. I'm very insistent, and it's laid out in the syllabus, it's laid out in every assignment description, every discussion description, that the peer review needs to be more than I like your work. It needs to involve more than just saying, maybe change this. I often give detailed instructions on each subtopic that I'm asking them to evaluate or discuss in an assignment. And I often provide them with a rubric that is very detailed, that tells them exactly how I'm going to grade their work and also how I'm going to grade their peer review. And in my head, this is great. They know exactly how I'm going to grade their work. So that's how they should be evaluating their peers' work. I've given them detailed instructions. I've asked them 5 to 10 questions. They should be answering all of those. And we're answering those questions of the peer work that they're reviewing. It should be just clear. But often what I do get is some variation of, I like your work. I like how you think. I like how you put this down. And there may be a few lines above or below that, but it's not more substantial than that in the beginning. So I was running into this challenge where I knew my students were struggling to give written feedback or give feedback in an asynchronous or in an online setting. This was a skill that needed to be taught to them. So I thought, well, how do I teach them? First thing that obviously that I tried to do online was to have collaboration in my students. In an hybrid high flex class, this worked out really well. Students were able to use breakout rooms to get to know each other. And once they got to know each other, they felt comfortable enough to just be able to dialogue with each other about freely with each other about their papers and their work. This, of course, did not work as well in an asynchronous class. The students just did not have that level of comfort, even though I had broken them into small groups of no more than 5 in a group where they could work with each other. They struggled in trying to make that connection in terms of giving authentic feedback in an informal way. I tried pairing activities, but I had the same response in that. I did increase the stakes. I increased the number of activities, so just the amount of sheer contribution of peer review to total grade, the number of activities went up, but also I increased the stakes of peer review on informal analysis. One of the things that, again, I tried was an online hangout with writing center growers. We tried to make it very chill. We called it Hangout, and we said, hey, come and share some ideas. The writing center provided a presentation, and then we're supposed to break into groups and discuss how I offer prompts and what students get out of it. However, we had 2 people who attended. So maybe offering online hangouts for asynchronous classes wasn't as successful as I wanted it to be. I did take an edited version of the presentation video of our Zoom meeting, and I put that up on Canvas, and I also put up the deck of slides offered by the Writing Center to the students. And I would say about 15 to 20% students in all my classes did access those and did give positive feedback about having that when they wanted to. I think a bigger consequence of having the Writing Center meeting was that students who struggle with writing or needed to go to the Writing Center got a lot more familiar with the idea of going to Writing Center and not hesitating and asking for that level of help. And of course, I think what worked really well was scaffolding exercises that taught them how to give feedback without feeling wary of this lack of personal connection. So one of the things that we did was annotate an article in the news exercise. And an article, they're not worried about who wrote this article because it's some person that they don't know. And once they start feeling comfortable in analyzing this work, then they can start taking it to the work of their peers in the formal discussion area. So I would put up articles in like from second week onwards from the New York Times or Wall Street Journal or The Economist that said, hey, just print out a copy or digitally annotate what do you think are the concepts, underline what you think are the most important concepts in this work that relates to class. Look at the tone. Is it sincere? Is it witty? Is it presenting some biases or assumptions in the paper that may be right, may be wrong, or do they conform to the same biases and assumptions that you have? We looked at what is your first reaction to this paper? Even do you like it? Just your reaction, just your first reaction, or do you hesitate about something in this paper? And then try to make connections. Can you connect with anything that's been presented here, or did you have any questions? And once they got comfortable doing annotation of an article in news, and again, these were very low stake assignments, they could take this over to formal discussion. We tried some low stake. I tried some low stake terminology and theory exercises where we just kind of went through articles looking at what's the terminology we are using in class. And by we, I mean our students and me. One of the things that I try to stress with them is that how do we give actionable feedback? So not just saying this is not working, this is wrong. You have to say, why does it not work? What specifically needs to be improved? What is specifically wrong? And once the students had started doing this, then we could ask students to bring this set of knowledge to peer when they're peer reviewing this. I also did try asking students to respond to peer reviews, like what the feedback they got from their peer reviews, and that loop didn't translate well to asynchronous classes because, again, of the time lag. It worked out well in an online setting where students could just sit down and have this conversation and then work on it in writing, but it did not work as well in an asynchronous setting. So peer review scaffolding, I think, works to a really large extent. Most importantly, students love the article annotation exercises. So I did 1 week of an article annotation exercise and teaching them a skill to look for certain things. And next week, when we were doing our discussion, our formal discussion, they would bring that skill to the table. And the students loved the article annotation exercise. It improved, I think, the quality of work and the comfort level students had providing feedback. I think some of the other ideas that I'm looking at is maybe having them annotate lecture notes for a particular module or subtopic and see how do they interpret, topics and terminology in that area. Maybe having them build a rubric. Once they learn how to, like, what do you think I should, as a teacher, should be looking for in a paper, and having them build it out sort of may help them realize what needs to go in. And this is my work in progress, things that worked and that didn't. So do share if if you have any feedback, if you something that's worked for you, because I would love to improve the quality of my students' discussions, which is quite good. I just would like to take it up another notch, and I would like my students to get over the fear or the dread of providing feedback.